We're back with another episode of the Dillon England Show. Thanks for swinging by. Grab your cup of coffee. It's going to be a good one today. Taylor Fletcher is the owner of Yellowtail Solutions and also the owner of PMI Upstate, also the owner of like 7 other businesses, and he's only 30. We talk a lot about what it's like to start a business when you're so young. What are some of the struggles that small business owners have? But then also just the mind that it takes for an entrepreneur to be successful. I think you guys are really going to enjoy this one. I do have to offer a quick apology. This is my last, podcast in the Rolodex of things. I told you guys before, I've had like 6 in circulation. We recorded this back in June and when I was in Greenville. And we finally are able to get it out. It is awesome. I can't wait for you guys to hear it. But before we jump into it, Cool Beans Coffee Brewery, broadcast brew, low acid blend, some of the best coffee that you will ever have. Order yours today on the link in the description. And when you order a bag of the broadcast brew, not only do you support Cool Beans Coffee Brewery, you also support the Dillon England Show. So if you like coffee, definitely go and order some today. Thank you guys for listening or watching. This will be available on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and enjoy the show. So let's jump in to talk about you, bro.
Right.
So I guess to give everyone kind of an idea of why we're sitting here. Wednesday, I'm in Greenville right now. I had Travis Woodham on the pod, and we are using your company space to do this.
We're using PMI Upstate SC conference room.
And it's perfect. And I did a great episode with
like
Travis. And then Travis was like, bro, you got to get this guy on.
Oh,
and
recommendation already.
Yeah. And so we figured it out. My wife let me miss more vacation time to do this. So shout out, Anna. Thank you very much.
She loves you. Thank you.
She does.
Thank you, Anna.
So I guess if you wouldn't mind, tell us a little bit about, you have a lot of companies. And I told you this is also interesting. Normally when I jump to a podcast, I do research. So we're just kind of like broing it out right now. We don't know much about each other.
Sure.
And so I'd love to learn, what was let's start with like the first company you started, because you have like 6 or 7 or 8, or you said you've started a lot of stuff.
I've started a lot of stuff.
And so you're young. How old are you, by the way?
30.
Dang, I'm 30.
Twins.
Let's go.
We both have kids too.
Yeah.
I got 2.
2? I got 1. Yeah, we talked about
okay.
that. Yeah. Boy, girl.
I got girl and then boy. 3.5,
Nice.
1.5.
That's the way to do it. Yeah. I don't know. I really wanted a boy. Sorry, we'll get back to that. I really wanted a boy, and then we had Madeline, and I'm like, I now just see myself as a girl dad because I love it so much.
Oh, it is pretty amazing. We don't get to choose the order, obviously.
No.
You found out, but both of my kids were happy accidents.
Really?
Yeah, birth control doesn't seem to work
No.
With me and my wife. We've tried multiple kinds.
It's too strong.
We don't even know. Everyone asks us, how many kids are you going to have? I don't know. How many God wants, because it doesn't matter.
At the end of the day, the Lord will, will work that out.
We obviously don't get to decide.
No, the Lord will make sure things happen.
I'm really glad it happened, though, because honestly, with what my wife wanted to do, she's was a kickboxing instructor, a river guide in West Virginia, and like really outdoorsy and stuff.
Yeah.
We weren't really planning to have kids anytime soon. We wanted to like do our things and adventure a little bit, travel a lot, and then we had kids on accident. Honestly, I'm 30 years old. There's a good chance we wouldn't have a kid right now if we didn't have them on accident.
Wow.
Yeah. So like really happy about it. Wouldn't change it for the world. It's awesome.
So have you always wanted to be an entrepreneur? Like walk me through, because a lot of entrepreneurs I talk to are kind of like, I stumbled into this as a kid. I didn't know what I wanted to do. When was the point? Like when did you start your first business? Like when did all this kind of start happening for you?
I think that I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I didn't really know what that meant. So I have worked a lot of different jobs at several different companies, and maybe it's just the way I grew up, but I don't actually like having a boss, which is a terrible reason to start a company. But the last company I worked for that wasn't for myself was a packaging distribution company. And I had sold a deal based on former connections at a what's it called? Like a home outlet store, like a Lowe's or Home Depot, but a smaller version. Yeah. I sold a deal to sell like a ton of 5-gallon buckets, like with print on it and everything. And it was like $1 million a month deal. And they turned around and said they had to lower the price so much I couldn't get a commission. It was like $1 million a month. And I was like, I'm not getting a commission on that. Wow. And so that kind of like made me not trust being employed, like the safety of it with when they can just do something like that. And I mean, what is my recourse? I can't really do anything. It's a small business. I was only making, this is 2019, 19, I was making $37,500 and I had a bachelor's degree. And the average household income here is what at the time was around 60 grand. And I was like, this isn't enough. My kid was just born. Like, this isn't going to work. So, dude, literally 2 weeks later, I got a phone call from somebody and they were like, hey, would you be interested in owning a franchise? And my response was, I'm not going to say no. And he's like, all right, let's set up an appointment. So I met with this guy. I believe it was Horizon Marketing Consulting or something like that. This guy's name was Chris Valdez. He pitched 8 or 10 companies to me.
Wow.
Told me to select 3. I selected 4. Interviewed with all 4 companies and then landed on PMI, which is Property Management Incorporated. And that's the office we're sitting in now. So I bought a franchise, PMI Premier Rentals. And then I bought out PMI Upstate SC about a year later.
Wow.
And then that was August 2022, and then just this last May 2024, I bought out a 3rd franchise up in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Wow.
Yeah.
And where Yellowtail? This is another company you have.
Yeah.
So where did this fit into the whole pie of PMI?
Yeah. So the property management company, that phone call came around the same time. A buddy of mine, Josh Richards, he was living in Colorado. A little bit maybe. Yeah. He went to school with us.
Yeah.
He was in Pi Gamma as well. His dad is a financial advisor and he needed a product to help him market better because his goal is to be what you need after Dave Ramsey. Like Dave Ramsey, great to get out of debt. Advice after that is definitely opinionated and based on maybe Dave Ramsey's fears
and his past.
And he's a little bit he's gruff with people when maybe he should show a little bit more grace and understanding. Sure. But I also understand it. I mean, I have friends that struggle with the debt thing, and so he's just trying to be like...
He's real.
He's being a little bit of a bully, but some people need that, and I get it. So I listened to him to a point, agree with him to a point, but the Colin Richards at Lord and Richards is the financial advisor firm that started basically just telling us what the product is that they needed. Josh Richards said... I can build it, and we started building it. He asked me to come on 2 months after he started the business, and I started doing the videography stuff. So everything with YouTube, I started scheduling stuff in Meta, and then building out some of the stuff in Monday, automations and stuff like that. So we started working pretty closely together, running like financial advisor podcasts or radio shows and trying to build YouTube channels, picking up some clients that way. So that's how we started. That's actually my full-time thing. Property management is a side hustle. I actually don't spend much time on it at all anymore. At the beginning, a decent chunk, but now...
But you have a crew here.
Yeah, I've got 8 employees. So it's like they run the whole thing. I come in and I do some BDM work where I make some executive decisions on vendors we're partnering with or implement more packages or opportunities for tenants or owners that they can, hey, this is kind of like an insurance policy. If a tenant leaves, we can guarantee up to 3 months rent because they vacated without telling us or whatever, something like that. And then for the tenants, the goal is to help them if they have a bad credit score. I implemented a package that can help them with, getting a better credit score. And this package also ships, air filters to the house every quarter so they don't have to go buy them. So it's all included in that package too. So providing more benefits in the community I grew up in is kind of the goal here.
Yeah.
So that's why we started it, and that's what we're doing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
If you look back 10 years ago and where you're at now, I mean...
When I was 20?
Yeah. Like when you're do you ever just think back and think a decade ago, I was in college, didn't know it, and now I own companies and I'm making moves and doing deals and buying out people. I mean, did you see yourself in this position, or is this just kind of like every day you're just figuring it out?
That's actually a good question. I was thinking about this a few months ago, and I was talking to my wife about it because 10 years ago, 20 years old, I was a freshman in college because I started late or whatever, and I did not have any trajectory at all. Like I didn't... This didn't affect me at all, but I think it's funny. I took a placement test, like that little test they have you take in high school where it says, oh, what will you be good at?
Yeah. I
was so far not towards anything that I got called in the guidance counselor's office, and they wanted to assure me that everything was going to be okay. And I wasn't bothered by it at all.
Yeah.
Like I didn't even have a second thought about it. And then they brought me in. I'm like,
well, now
should I be worried about it?
I'm freaking out.
But honestly, it didn't bother me too much. So in college freshman year, I had no plans. I mean, I went to college to make friends.
Sure.
I wasn't good at school, And I feel like I'd be a lot better now, but anyone can say that. But when I say a lot better, I don't mean that I would necessarily be better at the school system. I think I would be better at learning the stuff that I'm interested in and kind of not getting good grades in the stuff I could care less about.
Right.
Because I would try so hard to get good grades in like biomechanics and exercise physiology, and I'm like, I need a grade to pass, but I don't need an A.
What'd you go to school for?
Kinesiology. At the time, it was exercise science, I believe, is what the degree was.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So originally, when I was there, though, they switched the major on me 3 times. When I got into school, it was health, fitness, and recreation.
Okay.
But they were working on accreditation, all that stuff. I had 7 advisors. No, 7 or 9. I can't remember. 7 different advisors. They changed me almost every semester to different advisor, and then it switched from health, fitness, and recreation to health science to exercise science, and now it's kinesiology. So it was kind of a ride. But again, I didn't really care. I went to school to make friends. I passed, ended up on the dean's list once, so that was pretty cool.
Hey, there you go.
Shocker there.
I don't even know if
I thought it was a mistake.
typo. You're like,
Yeah,
wait a
for
second,
real.
I don't
It's
know.
like I've obviously been sitting next to my future wife in class.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
I learn a lot more from her now. But yeah, so probably not until I graduated college. Like I've always worked. I got my first job when I was 15. I did door-to-door sales for a while too, so that's where I really got started
were you
in
selling?
sales. Lawn analysis.
Yeah.
It was like a free lawn analysis for Weed Man Lawn Care.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
So I started with that, and that really got me into sales. And then when I graduated college, I quit my job. No. When I graduated college, I had 5 jobs when I graduated college. I quit all but one, which was an escape room, and honestly, I just kept it because it was fun. I enjoyed it. And then I got a job at BMW Manufacturing. I wanted to figure out how an assembly line worked, and I wanted to get involved in that process. 3 months in, I was promoted to basically supervising or quality checking everybody in there, and those people had been in there 20 years. And I could tell that this isn't where I want to be, and I know that at BMW, I just got in a queue line.
Yeah, you're just
and
next
no matter how well I do, I can't move up until the person in front of me moves up.
Yeah.
And I'm getting paid $16.50 an hour to quality check these people getting paid $30 an hour who've been here for 20 years, and I'm doing a better job than them. So I didn't really like that. And then I left there because I was getting married, and they approved my marriage was in April, honeymoon right after, and they approved my vacation in January. And then they unapproved it in March when I had said, hey, by the way, I'm going to be gone. They're like, oh, actually, we're understaffed. We need you to stay. And I gave them my 2 weeks notice. It's like, dude, I bought a cruise. Like, I'm not going to not go on my honeymoon because you say I can't.
You change your mind, right?
So I contacted the HR rep, and it was all cool. And then my boss found out the day I was leaving, and he was like super bummed. And I was like, what did you expect me to do? You knew where I was going. But anyway, so after that, my wife and I both went to West Virginia to work for Appalachian Bible College, really Alpine Ministries. She was a river guide the previous 2 years, caving guide and rappelling. So I went up there and helped them fill in where I needed to. And that was super fun. But for a lot of the time, I was free. Like I had nothing to do. I had lined up a job at that packaging company I mentioned for the fall, but they were cool to wait for me for 3 months. And I started reading some Dave Ramsey stuff. I started basically following the stock market pretty heavily, kind of learning that. So I spent a lot of time reading, played some video games, hung out by the pool, and hiked a lot of West Virginia, that area by myself, the Beckley, Fayetteville area.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. But that kind of started a lot of stuff for me because of the research I had been doing. So when I got back and I was working at Best Pack, I was like, okay, this is a small business. It's just, I'm the first employee. It's just the owner. So I was like, I can learn how small business works.
Yeah.
And so that's what happened. I started learning how small business works. Knew I'd probably start my own someday. Didn't know what it was. And then I branched into Yellowtail Solutions when my buddy asked me to, and which is interesting because there's so many different types of entrepreneurs, I think.
Yeah.
So like Yellowtail Solutions is a startup company that is funded by a financial advisor for the most part. And now we have some clients that help offset some of that cost for the original advisor that started it. PMI Upstate SC is a franchise with a franchisor with corporate backing, which is also like, to me, I'm like, both of these things, is it really entrepreneur-like? And I see that it is, but like for me, and when I think of an entrepreneur, I think of somebody that started a business from nothing and then built it into something. So I have a few businesses like that I'm enjoying. So property management is in real estate. I had to get a real estate license. Great. Well, I also have a background in videography and photography because I worked for Philips, light bulb company.
Okay. Yeah.
Toothbrush stuff. My father got me a job because my father works for Microsoft now. He's a software developer.
Okay.
He got me a job where he created a media player for Philips, and they needed somebody to create tutorial videos to teach doctors how to use the MRI machine software.
Okay.
So that's what I did.
Wow.
I got paid like $50 an hour. It was great. And I was in college at the time. So I really got in my niche there, was super interested in drones too. And so when I started this and realized, oh, real estate photography, duh, my owners need it. So I started a real estate photography company called Homeview Real Estate. I don't market it at all. I have a buddy that works for me. I just hired a remote team member from Sri Lanka that edits the photos.
Nice.
And he does a great job. Turnaround's like 12 hours maybe. When I'm sleeping, he's awake, and
That's
vice
the
versa.
best. Yeah, absolutely.
So I send it in the evening, and the morning I wake up and it's done.
That's Tim Ferriss' 4-Hour Work Week. I don't know if that's exactly what he talks about in his book, but anyway,
it's great.
Yeah,
No,
awesome.
it's amazing, and the guy's really awesome. It was a recommendation from another local startup called Black Box Media, another media company that does like a lot of they do a lot of clothing brands. They do like their shows for their like the pictures for their website and like some promos on Reels and stuff. Like they're really good.
Sweet.
They well anyway, the Homeview real estate stuff. No marketing. I've probably done $3,000 or $4,000 worth this year of revenue. Not trying because I don't really market it that much. I basically, if an owner asks, I say, "Yeah, we got it."
Yeah.
And we do it. So that's how I got into that one. So super easy. Having a company that helps pay another company has worked out.
Yeah, that's the cheat code. Daniel Doran.
Oh, I know some of the Dorans.
Yeah, so you would know Derek and Dillon.
Dillon, yeah.
Their older brother. I think he's either the oldest or second oldest.
They all start with DD.
So it's David is actually my pastor.
What?
Yeah, so David Doran is pastor of Resurrection Church in Lincoln Park.
Okay.
And then his dad, David Doran Sr., is pastor of Inner City Baptist Church. And that's where Derek and Dillon, all of them went to school.
Wow, okay.
And then Daniel Doran is out in Washington, or Seattle area. And he started a holdings company. He's buying up businesses like crazy.
That sounds
and
awesome.
so his story, he's been on the podcast. I'm flying out there at some point in the next year or so, and I'm gonna do podcasts for all of his companies that he's bought. And so he's smart because he started like a company in construction, and then he'll buy a gutter company, then he'll buy a roofing company, and then he'll buy the companies that all mesh together.
Yeah.
To exactly what you're doing. So a lot of smart entrepreneurs, the reason why when you meet an entrepreneur, they're like, yeah, I have 7 companies. It's a lot of times they saw a need that their one company had,
right?
and they're like, wait, I could do this too, and then it just blossoms. So it's a really smart business plan.
Right. I think my favorite company I'm working on right now is with Ryan Woodham.
Yeah.
And it's called Unlocked Capital. It's a lending company, lending brokerage. So basically providing funding for our current owners in our property management system to buy more houses that we can then manage.
Smart.
And take pictures of.
It's just smart.
Yeah. Just creating clients.
And you have your real estate license. So are you able to represent buyers if need be?
I can, but I don't. I'm partnered with Adam Taylor, and the Adam Taylor team is a KW agent and KW team. Lawrence County, Simpsonville area, and they're the best KW team in North South Carolina. And I could just be saying that, but the fact that they've gotten the award from KW the last couple of years,
like, hey, there's some truth there.
I would say that they're actually the best. And I mean, they've got 40 listings right now.
Wow.
At least that's what Kyle said. But anyway, so he said they had 41 listings right now, and he kicks me referrals. And when a real estate agent kicks me a referral, I kick them for management. I kick them back. And when I get a referral for one of my owners that wants to sell, I would kick it to them.
Yeah.
And I've only been able to do that a handful of times because right now nobody's really selling in my portfolio.
Yeah.
And then there's a couple other real estates before even working with Adam, really. There's a couple other real estate agents where I would just kick it to them. And then because I'm an agent, I can get a referral for that. So they can still pay me. I'm not going to take property management, again, part-time gig for me. I'm not going to take the time to list the property and not give these owners the best representation because I have no experience there.
Yeah.
My specialty is property management.
Well, it's knowing your strength, but it's also knowing your time. You're like, yeah, I could get paid a little bit more to show a house in this, or I'll get paid a referral fee of like 30% and have someone else do it, and I can keep focusing on what I know I'm good at.
Yeah, that's true. And also, like, part of this, the entrepreneur, ness, I don't get paid by my management companies at all. Like I'm paying off loans, I'm paying my staff as well as I can. I wouldn't say really well. I don't think that's true, but I would love to. So trying to pay off the debts first, and then we can do that. But again, part-time gig. The only company I'm with that pays me money is Yellowtail Solutions.
Yeah.
And so that's where I dedicate most of my time. And we've got several products working on that I'm super pumped about.
Well, we'll talk about those. We can talk about those soon. I'd love to hear if you can share what you can.
I can share a few things. Sure.
But before we do that, I love what you just said because it is the kind of the heart and blood of entrepreneurship. You see a lot on YouTube, like Ty Lopez. You know who that is? Like,
I've heard of him.
He's the guy that like back in the day had that YouTube ad, and he was like with a Ferrari behind him in his garage. And he's like, knowledge. That's what I care about. And people see these entrepreneurs driving these cars and the Andrew Tates, all whatever. But really what you're doing is entrepreneurship. I know you made a statement earlier. You're like, I don't feel like I'm quite an entrepreneur yet because I bought into a franchise and I did this. And an entrepreneur is like when you just start from scratch. You know what I mean?
I know that I'm an entrepreneur, but I feel like, it's just me personally.
And I know what you mean by that, by the way.
I have a higher standard, I think. So like entrepreneur, if you buy a franchise, you're an entrepreneur. You own your own business and you're running it. You get angel funded right out of the gate. Technically, you're still an entrepreneur, but an entrepreneur has a certain level of risk. Yeah. And those two things were way less risky than just starting something from scratch. Like the lending company we're starting, like 100% entrepreneur because we are starting from scratch. We have the head knowledge and we'll build it, but
I think there's just a little bit of, I feel the same. So I work with Aflac. I'm 100% commission, like 1099 contractor. Nice. I'm an entrepreneur, like for lack of better term. Sure. Right. But I've always felt the like, well, it's not my baby.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like I want to,
in the brand.
But we are still entrepreneurs. Like by definition, we don't get a paycheck unless things happen. And I have an S corp. It's called England Ventures LLC for all my insurance. So like I am an entrepreneur.
Sure.
But I've always been like, man, it would be so cool to create like a product or something. So I feel I feel the tension of like,
am I living a lie?
Yeah, right. But shout out to my buddy Robert Courtney, owns Robert Courtney and Associates, great marketing firm. Like, don't shortchange how hard it is to even make it in these careers. Because I think sometimes I know I struggled with some motivation, being like, well, it's not my own thing. Like Affleck's not my own thing. And if it was my own thing, it's like, no, it's still really hard to succeed. Like, you're at the top 2% of people that make it in these careers if you actually end up making it, even in real estate or insurance or buying franchises. And sometimes it's the smartest way to be an entrepreneur because when you buy into a franchise, they've already figured out a lot of it for you.
You would hope.
Ideally.
Ideally.
A good franchise. That you would at least have some of the, maybe even as simple as they have a marketing material already drew up. Like, okay, that's some time I don't now have to take. But when you are a full entrepreneur.
Yeah, I would say the safest way to be an entrepreneur is to have a full-time job, even if it's 100% commission with Aflac. Start something on the side part-time until it starts paying the bills and realize if I jump in full-time, my KPIs or my traction, it shows me that I can make it. So like our friend Nets, who maybe you'll get on if he stops talking about conspiracy theories.
Yeah. Well, it's already recorded, so I don't know. It might have already been aired by this point. I don't know when I'm going to release it. So,
but he's the same way. Like he did a job, he did a really good job, and now he started his own business. Yeah, and he makes more money doing it himself now, and he spends less time doing it. And that is to me the safest and the right way to do it. Not to say that there's necessarily a wrong way. But sometimes it does. Like I had an investor when I was trying to start my only LLC that's failed. I tried to start with 2 other people, and I was looking at getting funding, and I could get funding from a couple people. But one of the people, the main person I really wanted funding for a flipping business, house flipping business, is he wasn't excited about me doing it if I wasn't doing it full time. That made him nervous as an investor. Totally reasonable. Sure. 100% reasonable. And so that is another thing like entrepreneurs need to realize, like sometimes you do have to just jump in and trust that you know what you know and that you'll succeed. You just got to have the grit for it.
Yeah, I think that at minimum you need to prepare. What we always teach people is to try to have 3 to 6 months. If you can save and have some sort of nest egg.
6 months would be great.
3 to 6 months is a really good benchmark to have. I do think there's a tension of, I could see both sides of the coin, right? On one side, I think if you jump in full time, that like your feet are in the fire. You have to succeed.
Right.
You don't have any other income source. It's like, I got to make this business work. I have 6 months,
And
time's
if you
clicking.
have a family and a child, it's that much
It's
harder.
it's also that much more motivation.
Oh,
You know what I mean? They're like, I got to make this work. But when you start something as a side gig, sometimes this is my own personal feel. I feel like it stays a side gig longer than it should, because you're not quite putting into everything you can, because you have stability. When stability is completely wiped away from somebody, like, they either have to make it or they're gonna fail.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times it's just gonna get to your end result faster. You're gonna know very quickly whether you're gonna fail or whether you're gonna be successful. But when you have that stable income coming in, sometimes
you get lackadaisical.
You get lackadaisical, and maybe that business could have already been booming, and it's 3 years in your side gig, and you're still doing it as a side gig. And that's my only But at the flip side, people might not be able to save 6 months of income.
Yeah, that's true.
And then the best way is what you said. The best way for them to start a business would be starting as a side gig. Do it in the weekends or in the evenings when you can. And then when you feel like what Andrew Netz did, shout out Netz Electric, when he felt like he had the clientele, he went for it.
Yeah, I feel like risk tolerance plays a huge role in this. And
Yeah.
once you're married and have kids, you got to really think about what you're doing with your family. So, like, my experience, I had to talk to my wife because in August of 2022 is kind of when both things happened for me. I started Yellowtail Solutions with my buddy, or just jumped in with him, and then I got the property management company actually in November. But I had been talking to them.
That's like a 2 or 3 months.
6 months, yeah.
Okay.
I started talking to them in like April or May.
Okay, so your wife was already...
She already knew about the management company,
Okay.
but I was going to start that on the side of what I was doing at the warehouse. And then my buddy asked me to jump into his startup for Yellowtail Solutions. And I was like, all right. So I talked to her about it. And this is the other thing. A year later, the next August, I go to buy this branch. Our HVAC went out in the summer. And I told
For your house.
For my house, where my 1-year-old and my 6-month-old, my wife was. And I had to have the conversation, okay, I can either pay for the 13 grand for my new HVAC units, or I can spend this money on buying a new branch to expand this business, to escalate where we're going. She loved me enough to say, let's go without the HVAC and see if we can make it. And that's what we did. And that's how we were able to pay for really expanding this business to 100 doors just like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Shout out your wife, dude.
I know.
I mean, I had my wife on the podcast.
Did you really?
Like third or second episode. We're gonna do another. We'll do another one this year. But it was like how entrepreneurs have strong marriages through entrepreneurship, and it was talking through with her, like what we feel like couples need before starting, like entrepreneur wants to start.
Oh
something.
yeah, you gotta have that.
So like in
check-in.
your mind, like what do you feel like has gone well? Like what do you feel like would be an encouraging thing for couples to consider? And then what would have been some challenges for you guys? Because I know there are challenges as you grow.
Yeah.
And then you look back, you're like, man, if I only would have known this as a husband, this would have been so much better. So like what went well though? Like what do you feel like you guys did that was really helpful early on? Like when you went to her first in that April or whatever, that very first time when you got offered, was the franchise was first, right?
Right.
How did that conversation go? Like, how'd she take that?
Yeah, so in April, it was more like just a conversation like, hey, they're trying to sell me on a franchise. What do you think? And she's game. She's like that person, that friend that you're like, oh, she'll come. You know, like, she was long. She was along for the ride. And we talked about it. And as it got closer, I had a conversation with her about, okay, if I do this, I'm going to need to work a lot. Yeah. This is going to take time away from you. This is going to take time away from these kids that keep popping out. Give me 5 years to work an unreasonable amount of time. And setting that deadline is like a huge expectation because there's a finish line.
Yes.
I'm 2.5 years into that 5 years, and I have 8 businesses, and one of my investors just asked me to start a 9th one, and then I have a meeting about next week. So like it's happening. The debt payoff for my companies right now is October 2027, which is right outside the 5-year mark.
Yes, right on the corner.
But if I wanted to take all the money, my salary would triple.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that because I don't want my lifestyle to change that drastically because I can see that being a mistake.
Yeah.
And then I don't want to take all that away from the company that I could put more money into and grow even more.
Right.
So having the expectation of 5 years from my wife was awesome. And then I found out along the way over the last 2.5 years, keep them updated, but don't talk about work to them every day. Because when life becomes the work, you lose out on the actual relationship, the marriage part. If you're not business partners with your spouse, it's way deeper.
Yeah,
and so when you only talk about business, which I love business, so I talk about it all the time, and it drives her nuts. She's gracious most of the time until she's like, all right, check, we need to talk about something else. Let's talk about our kids. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, we have those. Right.
Yes,
Yes,
oh, yeah.
love them.
Their names.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was pretty good. I didn't learn that until probably about 6 months ago. That just like when she said, I'm not your business partner. Like, let's talk about something else. And we took a break and we had a date night. Didn't talk about business all night. That's really good for us. Good to learn. But you still need to have like a pulse meeting. Like, hey, this is where we're at. This is what I'm working on, because I'm so spread out in businesses. She doesn't necessarily know where I am during the day. We have a joint calendar, so she could see, but she doesn't necessarily know where I'm going to be, what my plan is. And she doesn't ask me a ton because she knows I'm busy. So she'll just ask for I'll just give her updates. Hey, by the way, like, I got this new gig or landed this new client. Hey, I'm working on buying this commercial building. This is the stuff we can do with it. Hey, I'm partnering with this vendor or this friend that owns this business on this project. Having those stuff brings her in enough to where she feels like she's a part of it, but not enough to where she feels like she has to be in the negotiations with me.
Right.
And I think that balance is crucial.
I mean, that could be the podcast. That was so good. I mean, that was so good because, I mean, it's such a balance of communicate. I mean, really, you said you need to communicate a lot. Healthy marriages communicate a lot, but then communication is more than just giving business updates and talking about the business. I know my wife worked with me for a year, and that was really good, but really hard because she was a business partner at that point. Like, she was literally working with me. She got her insurance license, and we were out cold calling, knocking on doors together.
Wow.
You know, like, she was in the car. We were enrolling employees side by side. And it was so difficult in the evening. It was just like, hey, did you file that? Yes. Did we do this? That? And then we had the same type of meeting. Like, you know, we're married, by the way. You know what I mean? Like, we need to just kind of like cut off business at a certain point and cut off business talk. And
so
then
did you do like a time slot? Like, hey,
we just tried like after dinner to not talk about business anymore. Yeah. And then it still happened, but I'm a very obsessive compulsive person.
Okay.
So like when I get something in my brain, it's all I think about. Yeah. So if I get a new idea, like, so for this podcast is the thing right now. And I am like, I will talk podcast shop. I'll talk YouTube analytics. I'll talk this thumbnail didn't work. Why didn't this work? And like, I'll talk, and my wife, as loving and gracious as she is, she'll listen to me, but she doesn't care. Like, that's not like, you know, the why a CPM works the way a CPM works. Like, she doesn't care about that nerdy stuff, but she'll listen. But finding the balance of, in a bigger scope of, hey, Anna, I want to drop this on the podcast. This is why. And then having that back and forth. I've actually found that my wife has a really good
discernment.
Yeah. Because my risk tolerance is like retardedly like I'll be like, oh yeah, it's for business. I'll spend it. You know, hilarious. Like, we don't have it. We'll find it. It's fine. I'll sell more insurance. It's okay. Like, that's how I always am for anything business. I will take the risk. That's kind of who I am. My wife, and this is why I encourage entrepreneurs to talk and communicate, because a lot of times your spouse balances you out and helps you bring, like, because sometimes I'll be thinking I'm thinking clearly, but I'm so excited about a project.
You're blinded.
Yeah, then I'm blinded by my excitement.
The shiny thing.
Yeah, and my wife is so good at. I'll give you an example. And actually, the Lord used this in amazing ways. As I've shared, you guys have seen the episode. Brandon Tatum was on it. Okay, big deal for me. Like, you know, I've like, when he said yes to my podcast, I think I had 800 subs on YouTube. And he has 3.4 million. Actually, 3.8. I checked this morning. I was texting him last night.
Love that.
And so I'm like, kind of a discrepancy there, you know, whatever. I shot a shot to him on a contact form on his website, whatever. I followed him for the past 2 years. So I was a subscriber. I'm like, this dude's awesome. I'd love to talk to him. And filled it out. He got back to me within 30 seconds. Like email, literally, I shot the contact form within the next 3 minutes. It was on a Friday afternoon. I was done with Aflac work. I was like, screw it. I mentioned before we started recording, turning the podcast into a business. So I'm doing like sales calls each week for podcast guests.
Right.
That's how I try to fill it. So I was using 30 minutes at the end of my Friday to send some emails out. For
time blocking.
Exactly.
For your side gig. Great way to do that.
And he got right back to me and he's like, I'm down. And I was like,
You're breathless?
I literally like it was just me in my office. I was like, I freaked out. Like
Is this right? Are you sure?
I was like, and he's like, contact my assistant Sky, and I was just like, okay, like, and I thought it was just one of those things that it was like an auto reply thing.
Yeah, like an AI.
So I was still but it was like, but it said sent from mobile. So I'm like, no, he just typed this out.
He did.
And so I email his assistant. She gets back to me within like an hour. And was like, yeah, I just talked to Brandon. He's down to do it. Let's talk about details. And I call my wife like, and I got to go to Arizona because he's in Arizona. I'm like, I got to fly out there. Like this is a massive opportunity. So the next day, Saturday morning, we sit down and we talk. And I'm like, Anna, this is a massive opportunity for me. He's like BFFs with like Elon Musk. Like, you know, like that's in my head. Like
Silicon Valley.
Yeah, he's like, you know, I'm like, I have to ask for it in person, which I already did. But I was like, because that's what I've done all my podcasts in person. And she's like, we just don't, and we don't, right? We did not at the moment have the money because we had just bought a new roof and we had just paid taxes. Uh-huh. And so it's like, we just didn't, it wasn't the time. And so I was like, we got to do, like, this is so important. And she's like, I just don't have peace about us spending the money to get you to Arizona right now. And I was like, okay, fine, okay. So we pray about it. And dude, this is what's crazy. I just had the Babylon Bee managing editor on. So it's at Babylon Bee. They're a satire news organization. Yeah. You're familiar with them. Yeah. So Joel Berry on. I had posted a 10-minute clip from the podcast that was like my bread and butter clip. It was the most interesting clip. It was how Elon Musk called the Babylon Bee, and a Babylon Bee article that my friend wrote got the Babylon Bee banned from Twitter. Elon brought them back. It was really cool story. I'm like, nobody has this information but my podcast. It was inside. I'm like, this is it. Video got 40 views when I posted it. So my wife and I just had this disagreement about what I'm doing on the Brandon Tatum podcast. And so I prayed. I was like, Lord, could you just make this super clear? If this is something I need to keep, like, where am I doing? What am I doing with this podcast? Like, what am I doing here, pretty much? An hour later, that Babylon Bee video started taking up.
Way.
By the end of that night, it had over 100,000 views.
What did your wife say?
We were monetized. We were this. Now that video has over 350,000 views on YouTube. And it was literally an hour after we had the disagreement. And my wife was like, because she was praying with us, and she's like, Lord, just make this clear. This is what, you know, let's do this. And so she was like, okay, like we'll figure out, like we'll figure this out. If there's something you feel like you have to do, we'll figure it out. Well, he emails, his assistant says he can only do a virtual interview. So I'm like, okay, that's fine. Well, that answers the question. That's still great. That's fine. We do the virtual thing. We get it set up. I'm freaking out. I'm like nervous. His like they go online. We're using a River or X, I don't know, whatever it's called. And we had like tech issues the whole time. He was like hearing an echo. This was this. And we were trying to figure it out. He was just like, bro, where are you from again? I'm like, oh, I live in Detroit. He was just like, man, I feel like I'm about ready to be in Detroit in the next couple months. And he looked at his calendar, and they had a Turning Point event. Turning Point USA had a big event in Detroit, and he was one of the keynote speakers.
No way.
And he's just like, man, he's just like, maybe we could do something in person. And I was just like,
it's happening.
Maybe. Yeah, that's fine if I can fit it in my schedule. And dude, so I say all to say, like, my wife, I was so excited about this thing. I was willing to just fork out a butt ton of money. And through my wife's discernment and the Lord just working out so many different things, it worked out so much better. Brandon Tatum flew to Detroit. I picked him up 15 minutes from my house and drove it like we hung out for 6 hours. It was incredible. And it was so much farther beyond that I could have ever gotten flying out to Arizona.
Yeah.
That if I had just waited on the Lord, listened to my wife.
That's why they're there.
Yeah, like it just worked out so much better.
That's awesome.
I know it was a long story, but it was just
worth it.
As you were talking, it's like, man, like communication with your spouse. I think that women have just a special intuition. And I also don't want, sometimes men in business sometimes think, oh, my wife won't understand, so I don't want to share with her. And she might not. That is fine. But they do
let her
have
make that decision.
Yeah, they do have a special intuition that I think that sometimes, because we are the risk takers and we see the shiny object, and we get creative, and we're like, we can figure out, we can move these funds, we could do this and do that.
Right.
And sometimes just having your spouse just be like, hey, they just have like I don't know, dude. They have like a special God-given, just like,
They love you.
Yeah. That
what
could
it
be
is.
it, dude. Yeah, seriously. And it's just, so anyway, my wife, love her to death. So anyway, communicate with your spouse. That's what this is about. Like what you shared was so good.
Yeah. So do you know Working Genius? You know what that is? It's like an assessment that people do for like work. It's
Okay.
it kind of, think of Enneagram, which I'm
Yeah.
sure you've heard of, but
Yeah.
like for work. So
Okay.
it's what's it called? Acronym is WIDGET: Wisdom, Invention, Discernment, Galvanizing, Enablement, and Tenacity.
Okay.
So basically, you answer a ton of these questions. Takes about 15 minutes, and it tells you what your working genius is. Like, so what you're going to be best at, like where you would thrive in a work environment, what you would love doing, and never get burnt out on it. And then it has the working frustrations, where it goes over, hey, if you did this for a long time, you get frustrated and you get burned out, and you never want to do it again. I do this when hiring employees, so I make sure to either hire them for the right position or craft that position to fit their genius.
Yeah.
Because for me, if my employee is happy, they'll stay longer and they'll do better. And we found that has worked. And I'm really happy about it. But 2 months ago, I had my wife take the test because I was just curious.
Yeah.
I didn't tell her what it was.
Yeah.
I said, hey, do you mind taking this from me? It's something that we use at work. I just want to see what score you get. So my score is the first 3: wisdom, invention, discernment. Wisdom basically, is it wisdom? I think it is wisdom. But basically it's like you ask the why questions. Like you're always like, and this may come, I believe it does stem from my problem with authority.
Yeah.
So like I always ask, well, why that way? Why can't we do it this way? So I'm always going to be playing devil's advocate in that way. And so that leads me into that. And then I, being invention, I love coming up or brainstorming the ideas of how to answer the why. And the discernment is taking what you decide on and deciding, this is what your wife, I think, has.
Yeah.
Is this a good idea or a bad idea?
Right.
Like bringing that into play. Well, so I'm the first 3. My wife was the last 3.
Wow.
I know. And I was like,
balance.
I
It's the
know.
yin and
it's
yang
like,
right there.
and it's not end all be all, but like seeing that, I was like, wow, like
That's really cool.
like, so yeah, so in our marriage, like we are a team. We've always talked about our marriage being like, we were friends first for a year before we even thought about dating. And that's awesome. And that's what we did. And like, now we have this marriage to where I'm working a lot. She's really taking care of our family for the most part, holding it together. And that is hard. I mean, we have 2 kids and my daughter isn't the nicest all the time. But we love her to death, and every now and then I hear her, and I'm like, oh, I better go upstairs and help out, you know?
Yes.
But having that team aspect, being an entrepreneur, is like super helpful, and I'm very grateful for it. But I've also found over the last year specifically is I'm not a very sharing person when it comes to emotions, which is a very male characteristic, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I found that when it comes to business, if I'm anxious or stressed out about something, she wants me to open up about that. And then she can help calm me down or assure me in a direction. And she's in it. So like right now, big example, October 12th last year, we moved out of our house and moved into her parents' house. My stuff's in the basement. They have a couple bedrooms upstairs that we use. And so we've been living with them it's been a while.
Life of an entrepreneur.
The original idea was 3 or 4 months. So like we're coming up on a year now in just a few months. And our house still hasn't sold. And like that's a bummer because the idea was to take that money and get a house, fix and flip it, and move in. But I'm looking for more space for my kids. So we have the conversation every now and then, like, man, should we move back into the old house? And like, usually it's me bringing us, and she's like, we can't do it. We can't go backwards. Like, let's stick it out. We're already here. We've already made all these decisions so far. I'm like, so she's like encouraging me in this way. Yeah. And that is, 2 years ago, I would never opened up about any of that. But like, it is so nice. In an entrepreneur world, you're very alone, it feels like. When you're married, you don't have to be. And then finding other entrepreneurs like you or Ryan or Travis or Andrew Netz or whoever to be in a group and to talk to them about it, your struggles, what you're fighting, the camaraderie you get. Like I was in entrepreneur Bible study for a while. We went over Faith Driven Entrepreneur is a book written by a pastor up in North Carolina, Virginia. It's 3 pastors or 3 people anyway. And having that camaraderie is really nice. Just to not feel alone so you can express that. But having it with your wife is a step up.
Yeah, and it's
really
something that you shouldn't take for granted. I know my wife it's a really weird thing because like if she always knows when I'm lying to her. Yeah. And not when I lied like as a habit, but like, how are you doing? I'm good. I'm fine.
The short answers.
Because like what I don't, I think as husbands we try to protect our wives from the stress that we're feeling.
I get that. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I am always like, no, we're good.
Delay the information. Till
And
it's
I'm
over.
like, our bank account's just bounced again. No, I was kidding. You know, I'm like, great. And, but my wife knows. And so it's actually been a really growing thing for both of us where she has learned, like, I'll talk when I'm ready. And I talk quickly, but it's not always immediate because sometimes I'm still figuring out what this means, what the next step might be.
You want to provide a solution before you provide the bad news. Like, this might be an option. What do you think?
So bad news, we're broke. Good news.
Like, I think we can make money here.
Yeah, right,
yeah,
exactly.
No, totally get that.
You know, good news, my admin is still working with us, even though I can't pay him. No, just kidding. And so
he doesn't know yet.
No, Tom, I'm paying you. Tom, don't worry. I have money this month. No, I'm just kidding. That's real talk, though. No, I'm just kidding. But my wife just, did you know, dude? It's so real. It's so real. Entrepreneurship.
Dude, I mean, I hate to interrupt, but like, a year or so ago, like, I didn't know if I was going to be able to pay my employees.
Yeah.
And I literally sat down with the board of the company, and I was like our board, and I was like, we've done everything we can to cut costs except let people off. We just got to sell. We're salespeople. We need to sell. We sold a ton.
Yeah.
We kept everybody. Yeah. And like, sometimes that's just the way it is.
It's how it works. Yeah. And sometimes in our industry, it's very economy driven. And so like when we first started, 2018, 2019 was awesome. Like I saved more money in 2019 than my dad made. That's how much money I saved.
Wow.
Like, yeah. So, or close to. I mean, or than you were making. Like I think we saved like $45,000 or something like that.
That's
40
awesome.
grand in 2019. We were also doing Dave Ramsey. We were using every dollar.
Nice.
We were living at it. So it was just one of those situations that it just worked really well. And we just sold a bunch. My wife was working with me.
Yeah, two incomes, no.
Yeah, no kids, no our
very
mortgage was $700.
What?
Bought our house for $107,000.
Where do you live?
Lincoln Park, baby. Booming metropolis if you're a meth dealer.
Whoa.
And,
That's how you save that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, I love Lincoln Park. All my neighbors love you guys. So yeah, no, we say, and then COVID hit, and we live in, so Gretchen Whitmer is, I'm sure you've seen her on the news. I know she's Michigan governor and she's insane. And she shut the whole state down, killed a bunch of businesses. And we were one of those because like we function only when businesses are open because we sell to businesses.
Right.
And we're also supplemental insurance. So we're not needed. It's just nice to have. So we're like a business offers health insurance, but they're still trying to maintain a competitive advantage. You can pay people, but they also want benefits. So then they kind of just keep stacking up the benefits to make your place more apt to work for it. So they come to us. Well, when you don't even know if you're going to be open tomorrow because the state legislation keeps changing on if people can work in person or everything's virtual or you have to have this, that. They're like, look, we want to do this, but we don't even know if we're going to be open tomorrow. So our business, like we were 70% down in revenue from 2019 to 2020. 70. The money we saved, we lived on for the next 2 years. And
so Dave Ramsey saved your life.
For real. Like anyway, his principles and obviously my parents were very helpful in that too.
Oh, I'm sure.
All just the strict budget living.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I almost bought a car in cash in that February, right before COVID. Almost bought a Mazda 6, $33,000. I was going to buy it in cash, which is Dave Ramsey's method, by the way.
Right.
So glad I didn't. And 2023 of September, we got married with $300 in our bank account in 2018. Fast forward to September 2023, we had $300 in our bank account. We went full circle.
That's crazy.
Because again, like I had been building I bought a commercial, or I'm leasing a commercial office space with like 4 offices for my agents, and I have an admin now, and so I make money. This is also entrepreneurship talk. So I'm making revenue, but our family wasn't seeing as much. And then when you throw in inflation and losing revenue when we were just starting to expand, it was just this perfect whirlwind of like, ugh, And so we've just been slowly getting out of that. So it's been,
well, you kept all your hair.
Somehow.
I don't know.
I have like one gray hair I found the other day.
Oh, you're changing color.
Yeah, it's not good. But when my wife's like, she wants me to turn into like a silver fox. She's actually really excited about it.
Silver fox.
That's what she keeps saying.
Okay. I wish that I had a full head of white hair, and I've wished that for like 2 decades.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I'll probably go bald before
Rogaine or something.
Rogaine.
That's the thing, right?
Maybe.
I don't know. There's something about a good bald man with a beard. That's like a good look.
Oh, that's
you know
fair.
what I mean? Like,
I don't think the look might not be for me, but hey, if it
you
happens,
can try
then
it.
it will be.
Yeah, it will be.
I might
I
have
just
to
feel like
try
if you're gonna be bald, you have to have a beard. Like you have to like have hair on one side.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of someone that's bald that doesn't have a beard.
It looks weird. You're just like a sack of skin.
Q-tip.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, like a
A sack of skin. Is that what you're just like?
I don't know. It's just like a
Cut?
What is that? Yeah. all the bald, beardless people are like, oh. Everyone's there. Anyway, if you're bald and beardless, we love you.
But if you
But
don't,
you do look like a Q-tip.
well, actually, I think Q-tips are the people that have just full head of white hair.
Yeah,
I think that's actually the proper term, but
that would make more sense.
that's neither here nor there.
Anyway, no, we'll leave that in. That's good. So anyway, yeah. So that's what happened with our business. And so when you're talking about entrepreneurship and struggle to pay the staff, it's like that is real talk, and that I wish more entrepreneurs had that talk. And what you said is, I mentioned Mike Grewley. You're awesome, EOS guy, and when he talks about company culture. What you're doing is so smart when you're talking about hiring to their personality and trying to fit. Like if they're really good at these things, their personality is this, and I can hire them to that. You're creating a happy culture. You're creating a culture that people, do you communicate them like why they're taking the test when they're taking
the only thing, so you can't hire, to be clear, you cannot hire based on an assessment, but you can use the assessment as kind of a guide. So my guide is, okay, they take this assessment. Can I craft this position in a way that will benefit them?
Do you communicate that to them? Like,
no.
Okay, cool.
I don't. What I tell them is say, hey, as part of the process, we have 3 interviews and this assessment. And I say, as part of this process, I'd really like you to take this test. It takes 10 or 15 minutes, but do me a favor. Get in a space where no distractions, clear your head. Don't overthink it. Just answer the questions and move on. And then in our next interview, we'll go over it and basically question them on it. And I got this idea from a former Air Force pilot. He owns the 2 Chick-fil-A's in 2 of the Chick-fil-A's in Spartanburg. And my best friend is his talent director.
Okay.
And so he hires a lot of people. I mean, he's hired over 300 people at this point, and they use this as part of it, especially for their higher ups. And they have way more intense than me because obviously it's a way bigger company. But they use this for the same reason. And I got the idea from them, and I was like, oh, I can really incorporate this for all of my people. And it's just like retention is such a big thing. Every time you have to replace somebody, it costs like twice that salary just to get them trained up and back into it. And I don't want to do that. Yeah. I want to hire somebody. I want them to become part of this work family. And we implemented EOS, like you said, and providing those goals every 90 days and meeting with them quarterly and be like, all right, this is what you've done this year. This is how it helped our 10-year goal or 3-year goal or whatever. And then these are the measurables we're going to use every week in our L10 meetings to be the progress of your 90-day goal. That shows your traction. It shows like I'm getting stuff done. It also is huge accountability where if you don't get it done, everybody in this meeting is going to see, and you better pick up the slack, which I'm on that. So me and the other owners, they can see if we're doing our job too. So we have to set a standard. And if we don't, then they're like, well, why would they have to? So that motivates us. Yeah. It's like, okay, if we do well, they'll do well. And that's what's happening.
Yeah. When goals are clearly
defined. Yeah.
Growth can happen and people feel loved and cared for. Because what you've done, even, with this, when you are creating roles, when you're like, I really like this person, for example, they would make a great fit for our company. This is pretend. Like they're awesome. They're good people. And then you've also like figure out the roles based on their, like that test, what you're communicating, even if they don't realize it, you care for them and you're trying to set them up as well for them to be successful.
Right.
And then it's going to benefit the company as well. It's a mutual relationship that's beneficial to both, but you're creating this culture of care. You're creating a culture of like, there are so many companies that just get a next butt in the seat. They don't care who, whatever. And then it's just like, oh, they just keep cycling through and they're like, oh, why does our retention suck? I'm like, well, your culture sucks. If you create a good culture, then over time, you will find the people that fit in that culture and you're going to create a great team. And you're doing a great job.
Right. I mean, so we hire remote team members too. And I have one remote team member. Her name's Roxy. She says R to the O to the XIE. So that kind of gives you the personality right there. We paid way more for her to be an employee than we really had the ability to do because we loved her so much in the interview process. She's really easy to get along with. Yeah. She learned English watching Nickelodeon, relatable. That's awesome. And so she's the one person I have right now that's not really in like the best seat for her personality because she wants to be more interactive, and that's really hard, and it's something we're working on to figure out because she's remote, but she's a people person. So like she talks on the phone a lot. Yeah. She's trying to build a relationship with vendors and stuff, and That's awesome. But like as part of the interview process, like we mentioned, you're talking about culture. We go over our core values and like what we're doing. So our core values are God before money, people first, competitive excellence, and personal and professional growth. And so part of the last one, it really drives into our culture here to where I pay for continued education for my employees. And it doesn't necessarily, usually it has to do something with the work, but not necessarily exclusively. So like my maintenance supervisor, concerned about safety a little bit sometimes going into some sketchier areas. And we're like, all right, I'll pay to get your CWP. Like it's on the table. Real estate license we've done. We just offered to pay for one of our remote team members' accounting.
Yeah.
Which is super easy, honestly, for me, like benefit to her because her cost of living is so low over there compared to here to where I'm like, she says this college costs $1,000 a year. And I'm like, can I attend? Yeah. You know, like I paid I don't even know what the number is, 12 times that at least for half a year.
Yeah.
So like, I'm like, yeah, I'll pay $1,000 a year for you to get.
And sometimes it's getting creative.
Degree.
Like sometimes like when you own a business and like I said, when your staff knows. And I also I'm encouraged what you said too. Like you're a small company, and when you communicate a lot through your L10 meetings or whatever, and you're open a lot and what you can be, that you create like a group of people that's a family that's like, you know what? Hey, we're in this too. There's a sense of ownership. Like I want to see this company succeed. What can I do to help this company succeed? More than just when's my next paycheck, or I want to work the bare minimum just so I don't get fired. And that's what employers are always balancing when they pay salary. It's like, you know, you want to get the staff motivated to work the best that they can be, but the staff is always thinking, well, how do I? It's easy to think like, what's the minimum I can do? I mean, you probably saw that at BMW. There's a lot of people that are like, I'm just gonna do what I can to not get fired.
Yeah,
you know. And so, but when you create culture and when you create accountability and you create this world where there's safety, people feel safe, they feel loved, and they feel cared for, they're gonna want to do their best because. Believe it or not, in companies, and I see this with all my clients, like I told you, I have 150 of them. So I'm in there all the time. Right. So I see good cultures and I see bad cultures. And it's tangible. You can tell. I'll walk into a client. Yeah, you can tell how you're greeted. You can tell by the smiles, like the jokes, the laughing.
Sixth sense, even walking through
you know, like I have a towing company that they're always just making jokes and they're laughing, they're having fun, and like she pays well. And it's like it's a blue collar culture, but they like it and they're having fun. Then I have another company that it's like she's crazy, and everyone there's like, well, she pays good, but we don't love it, and you can just tell. And so anyway, culture's tangible, and it's worth spending the time and effort and resources to create one.
Yeah,
because you're gonna see your money back.
So I learned a lot about that reading Roller Coaster Entrepreneur. Have you read that?
No,
it's
I haven't.
Darren Hardy, I think is his name.
Okay.
And he does a little video series. I think he posts a video every day where you can like, it's like a tip or whatever, but he gets into like A players. An A player, which you're describing, will work for less for a better culture that has like a vision and like is more enjoyable because like you're at work a lot of your life. If you don't enjoy it, why go there?
It's true.
Yeah.
You spend more time, a lot of times, with the people you work with in your own family.
Exactly. Yeah. So, like, that's why creating a work family is so important to us and, like, helping provide for employees outside of work and going beyond is awesome. Like, ideally, I did not start business to make a ton of money. That'll be hopefully will be a great, like, thing that happens. But I started it to create jobs in a culture that was like fun and great for the employees involved and really like make a difference for them. Yeah. So, and that's one of the reasons I don't take a salary. So I can pay them more. Ideally, I pay them more than market. So not only do they enjoy where they are, but they're getting paid above what they could get paid anywhere else. My goal is to make it difficult for them to leave, not out of spite, but out of love. Yeah. So they'll stay. And like, again, retention is huge. And that's my ultimate goal is like create just the avenue where people want to be with us because it's their second family.
And what I will add too is because we have a lot of employees that watch the show and listen in. Sometimes employees can have a very direct impact on culture because sometimes the owner, like for you have a bunch of hats you're wearing. So this company here is one of the hats that you wear. Right. And so sometimes it can be easy for owners that are wearing different hats, having multiple companies they can sometimes feel out of touch. And let's just say there's an employee that if you're feeling like, man, I really like this place, but there's a couple things that we could improve here. If if you work for someone that has open and honest conversation with you, they're open to ideas. So a lot of times there's been employees that have like told me, they're like, hey, like I heard this, like there's an EOS conversation, like same with Mike, we did a year ago. And based on that, we had a couple people go to their employer and be like, hey, like, just so you know, like, I don't want to leave, but there's a couple things we can improve here. And the employer was thankful because they're actually like, if you didn't talk to me, I would have had no idea this is going on and you would have left.
That's an A player.
Yeah. And it's great. And
those are the ideas. Yeah. You love it. Yeah, absolutely.
So just don't, if you're an employee, don't be afraid to speak up and don't be afraid to, actually, we talked a lot about on the EOS podcast, we talked a lot about how to ask for a raise, how do I do that? What do you say?
How do I ask myself for a raise?
Well, you can't. If you're an employee, how to ask for a raise, or if you want to work virtually, how to position that. Actually, so I mentioned Tim Ferriss. So Tim Ferriss's book, The 4-Hour Workweek. Have you read it?
I have not.
Very good read. He has a chapter in there on how do you negotiate pay raises working virtually. He has this big like thing where he like is like anybody should be able to live and travel the world. So if you want to travel, because it's like back when the book was written, our exchange rate was even better with our dollar. But like, let's say you wanted to travel, how can you go to your employer and still figure that out? So he talks a lot about negotiating. I'll talk about VOS.
Because they can pay you less if you live in another country.
Yeah, and there's a bunch, and also just like, what if your employer's like, oh, you have to be here at the office every day? And then there are different things that an employee could do to actually be like, well, it's almost like, you remember in the Bible, like Daniel, and they wanted him to eat meat. He didn't want to eat meat. And he said, well, just give me a chance to prove that I can not eat meat and be better off. So what Tim Ferriss talks a lot about is like, if you, let's just say on Fridays, you want to go watch your son's baseball game at 5, but you don't get off work at 7 for whatever reason, whatever it is. But you really want to make this happen. So you go to your boss, and instead of saying, hey, I need an offer, I'm quitting. Well, that's not quite the way to do it. Instead of going that way, you're going to leave. Be like, hey, this is what I really want to achieve. Could I try and give him 3 different options? Could I come in early this day? Could I get this day? You see, whatever that situation is, come in with a solution that you know they're going to like. And a lot of times they're going to be like, oh, yeah, that's fine. Like a lot of times that employees could get what they want just by coming in with a good plan and showing that they've actually thought through what the business owner would want.
Well, that has a lot to do with respect too.
Right.
It's like, so I've read a book that says it's called Exactly What to Say. And like starting a conversation like, saying something like, do you consider yourself an open-minded person? No one's going to say no to that.
Right.
And then you present them an idea they may not actually be open-minded to, but now they got to consider it because they just said that they were open-minded.
Yeah.
It's like kind of on the same level.
Yeah, it is.
Usually that type of wording is led into someone you know a little less than your boss.
Yeah. Or even just repeating something that they've said. So if your boss has been harping at something recently, and you're just like, hey, I know that you've really been like pressured about our production recently. The past 2 weeks, I don't know if you've been looking at my numbers, but I'm up like 30%. I'm taking that really seriously. Like just showing them you've heard before you ask and done things before you make a request.
So it doesn't sound like you just ignored everything.
Yeah. So you're just, hey, I've been listening to you, and actually I've been able to do this while also doing this. I'd love to do more. I'd love to work remotely on Friday. Would you mind giving me a 3-week? This is the 4-hour work. Would you mind giving me a 3-week test, or would you mind giving me a 2-month test with a new schedule? And if I don't perform up to whatever,
bring me back in.
And actually, I'm going to promise you a 20% increase or whatever it is.
Oh, nice.
So
negotiating.
Like, exactly. Like so I think a lot of times an employee doesn't feel that the only thing they can negotiate is salary, but they can actually negotiate a lot more than that. Time off, vacation, whatever they want. But a lot of times they just negotiate and they come in, they're like, look at everything I've done. But it's like, well, what if you do a test? Like, hey, would you mind just giving me, I want to travel more and I want to work virtually. Can I work remote for the next month? And
that sounds cool.
If I accomplish everything that you've laid out for me, I get another 2 months. And we do check-ins quarterly, and then eventually it turns into a thing. And if for whatever reason you're not satisfied with it, then I come back in. That is a lot different than being like, hey, I want to let you know I'm quitting unless you give me this.
Yeah.
It's a different conversation. But the reason I mentioned this, I want the employees, because I know we have a lot of employees that listen, that sometimes I wonder while they're listening if they feel out of like, oh, this is always driven to entrepreneurs. I'm trying to like, how can I also deliver value to people that don't own companies? And that's just one thing we've talked a lot about, is that you should feel the freedom to negotiate. And also when it's beneficial to the company, a lot of times it'll be a win-win for both parties. So I don't know. I got on some random tangent, but
I love it.
there you go.
I haven't read the book. Sounds like I need to.
It's a good book. I listened to it while mowing the lawn. It's a couple times.
You listen to it like so.
Like over the course of a summer.
Every time you
every time I mow the lawn, just throw in
like
the 4-hour work week. Yeah, that's what I did.
You're mowing the lawn book.
Yeah, it was good. I did it back in like 2021. Anyway, okay, I wanted to pivot to one thing. So would you mind? There's two other things I want to talk about on the podcast. We can wrap up. You let me know on your time.
All right. First off, you keep saying pivot, so I assume you've read the Lean Startup.
I actually haven't. No.
Really?
No, I just.
I know pivot's a word that Ross Geller uses and everybody else uses, but
is it okay?
Lean Startup is. I'd recommend you reading that and talking about it on your podcast because it's perfect for entrepreneurs trying to start something and keeping it very lean in the beginning and not getting too distracted, proving that your product is viable, proving all this before you jump in the shiny things and head to Arizona, like all that stuff. It's a really good book.
Check it out. Maybe I'll read it and then you and I do a review of the book.
Sounds good. I'm about finished with it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll read it. Was there two things or one thing? Was that?
That was it.
Okay, cool. You have new things that you're going on. I want to give you an opportunity if we can talk about some new things. I always love new things. If you want to. And the second thing, if we can choose what we talk about. You also were on this really cool show that I don't know much about, but people listening might know about it.
Maybe.
And I'd love to talk about because I've never met anyone that's been on like a show like that, and I'd love to
Well, you should go on it.
Well, I don't even know what it is.
You should compete.
Okay, let's talk about the show. What was the show? Remind me the name.
All right, I'll lead into it.
Yeah, give us a story.
I'll lead into it. So
he's famous.
I
just want everyone to know that.
I'm not famous, but maybe. A little bit of backstory. I went on the show. It's an entrepreneur show called The Blocks, and they pit entrepreneurs against each other in competitions. Okay. I went representing Yellowtail Solutions. Yellowtail Solutions is a digital marketing company that specializes in keeping emails out of the spam folder. So we get your emails in the inbox, which increases open rates, which in turn could increase your sales. Like that's the goal. Yeah. So the reason we even jumped into this is because we were sending email marketing out for financial advisors, and we broke the system. Looked for somebody that could help fix it, and we couldn't find anybody. We found the need, and we pivoted our company to fulfill the need. Pivot. We pivoted the company to fulfill the need. And so now what we do is exactly what I said. We work with companies to heal their domain reputation, authenticate their email domain so that they start landing in inboxes and stop landing in the spam folder.
That's sick.
And so we do a few other things like we have a blog team, we have a video editing team and all that. But when I went on The Blocks is the name of the show. It's on Prime. I'm in season 13, which airs in September, I think.
Okay, so it's not aired yet.
My season isn't yet, but I think.
And you can't talk about it on how it went.
I won't, but okay. I don't. I mean, I signed an NDA of some sort.
Okay,
so
sure.
I'm not gonna.
We can't.
I'll say I was in. I can't tell you who won or if I won or anything, but I will say that I was in a group the second to last day of the top 17% of people going over like some of the last things that he does where he tries to figure out who is the most valuable and who is the most investable.
Sweet.
So we did make it into
Did you enjoy the experience?
The experience was awesome, but it was one of those things like I mentioned earlier where the experience had more to do with being surrounded by everybody that was in the same boat as you.
Wow.
Like, I mean, there were some weird companies there. Like, there's this lady that was doing like sexual education, like
nice.
like Bordeaux shoots, which it maybe isn't weird, but I grew up in the Bible, the buckle of the Bible Belt, so it's a little weirder.
Yeah.
And then, there was grading companies. There was light hanging companies. People hang like seasonally. People hang Christmas lights. They hire people. Cool. Yeah, didn't even know that was a thing. And then like a few other things like candle making. And there's this girl there, her name is Melanie. She lives in New York City. She's from France. She has a candle making business that's doing really well. I am working on getting her down here in September, I think, to do a class in Greenville, South Carolina, and invite a bunch of people to do because she wants to expand. She wants to start franchising out a little bit. So that was the coolest part.
Yeah, the networking and the meeting the people.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And then meeting the coaches. So the coaches or judges own like one of the first and biggest headhunting businesses in the world. And I couldn't even name it now because I don't talk to headhunters at all, nor do I want to. No offense, Emily. But it was really, she's from Britain or London or whatever. And like, that's super cool. And there's a judge that started a couple of restaurants. There's a judge that was my favorite. He is a fractional COO and helps big companies basically restructure and make themselves more profitable. And then there was another guy, which was the most interesting one. He owns a honey farm or a bee farm, really, where he loans out his bees to people. and he donates all the proceeds to charity.
Wow.
$2 million last year he donated charity based on the revenue that he generated off of that company.
That was his donation.
Yeah, it's just like he has another company, a trucking company, and he just did this on the side. So the trucking company moves all these beehives, and he donated $2 million based on his revenue. And that's meeting those people is awesome. So the show is really like classes that you're taking, and then you have they call them pods, where you're meeting with the judges and you're surrounded by 12 to 16 other contestants. And then you have to give a pitch based on the lesson of the day. And then they have a kind of a conversation like this where they start drilling you about your company, see if you know your stuff and see how you're going to apply what you learned today to that stuff.
Do you get a partner, or is it just you?
It's just you. So I brought a business partner with me, Josh. I brought him with me.
Okay.
He did not participate in that portion. He was just there and helped me think through some of the stuff because he's on one side of the business and I'm on the other. So having us be able to merge on that was awesome. But yeah, sitting in those rooms and competing, it's crazy. Like, they're not supposed to tell you like what rank you are, because it kind of demotivates people toward the end of the week if they find out they're low in the rank. But after every pod, I would ask the coach, say, hey, where did I rank on today? And they usually wouldn't tell me until the next day, because if you win the pod, you end up on stage in another game that night. I got second place every day except for one where I got third place in those pods, which tells you a little bit, which may be a little bit of a spoiler. But it was awesome. I mean, it was cool to get that feedback, like, okay, we're doing something right.
Right. That's the thing, too. Is
we got so much validation from that week there. So it was just a week with them, and
where were you shooting?
So that was in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which I would never. There's no reason for me to go to Oklahoma ever.
Dude.
But we were at a casino for a week, and then I'm actually going back the next. It's not this won't be part of the reality show, but I'll be in Kansas City. The host is Wes Bergman, so if you're into reality TV, he's on The Challenge, and then I think there's something called Villains.
Yeah. Okay.
But he's on there, and he's been a repeat. But he owns a company called Beta Blocks that teaches entrepreneurs how to streamline their business. He goes through the lean startup model, like the book I mentioned, and he will help you build it out and teach you how to do it. And it's like there are versions of this done by some older guys, let's say Silicon Valley, New York, or whatever. But their niche is not his niche. His niche is taking somebody who isn't really worth anything, has no traction, and helping them get traction. And then they can be picked up by investors once they see traction. Because an investor's not going to invest in someone who just started something. But that's pretty much what it is. So I'm going to his house, actually, in September. I was invited to be a part of a group to go there. I think there's 10 of us, 12 of us. And then this is basically what he calls grad school. So basically, if I understand the concepts and I've learned them and I've been doing stuff for them online for the last few weeks or months, then I could potentially be a judge on a following season.
Sick.
Yeah. So that'll be pretty fun.
That's awesome.
It is.
How did this opportunity come to you?
So I have no idea. I honestly, he says he does a lot of ads, and I don't remember how it happened, but I thought originally that there was a local, Greenville, South Carolina, there was a local group of people that were getting together that just wanted to talk about entrepreneurship, and they were starting up. And I thought that I was going into it being like, oh yeah, I've started 7 businesses at that point. Like I can help people figure out how to get started, get the EIN number, bank accounts, get that all set up, and then give them advice on, hey, don't follow the shiny objects, communicate with your wife like we've talked about. And then in the third interview, I was a phone call, lasted about an hour. I don't think it was supposed to, but I was enjoying my conversation. Yeah. And I asked the lady, I'm like, hey, halfway through, what is this? And she was like, what do you mean? I was like, I thought it was this. And I explained. And she said, oh, no. And then she told me what it was. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, that sounds great. Sure.
What did your wife say when you told her, hey, I'm going to be on TV?
I almost didn't tell her. So I have this thing where sometimes I just don't tell my wife things. Not because I don't want to, but because she'll tell everybody else before it's a thing. And I don't want Taylor's going to be on the reality TV show, and then I'm not on it. And then everyone's
or you get out first episode.
It's like, oh, he failed. I don't like the failure aspect of telling everybody ahead of time.
You're protecting yourself.
You are. Yeah. It's more of an ego thing, I'm sure. Yeah. But I just don't want that expectation on me and then have to feel like I have to perform. So I waited probably too long to
By the way, I'm going to be gone for a week.
Next week.
Wasn't that long?
No. I probably waited a couple weeks before I said anything, and then I played it off because it's a reality show, but it's more of a documentary.
That begs the question: if let's just say you were going to be on Survivor, or so my wife loves Survivor.
So does mine.
And let's just say we were going to be. Let's say you and I, or you or I, were going to be on the show. Let's say we got accepted. I almost wonder if it would be sweet to not tell them you were going to be on Survivor and make up like
I'm gonna be gone for 30 days.
yeah like I have a uncle who needs my help. I don't know.
So that's
and then they like load up Survivor. But just imagine, dude, they load up. You don't tell them anything, but you know that they're gonna watch the next season.
2 years later,
And like 2 years later, you don't say anything, and they're just like, "What the heck?" And then you win.
I won't lie, I've actually done something very similar to that.
See, it's
on
a
a
good idea.
very small scale. Leaving for 30 days when you have a wife and children, not a good
Oh
idea.
yeah, you can't lie about that. I'm not encouraging. I'm just saying
He's not encouraging
it
a
would
lie.
be sick for them to be like,
If I was dating, I would do it.
yeah,
Because it's none of your business. We're not married. I don't have to tell you everything.
That's dang right.
But like
Know your lane.
married, I would tell her that I was doing something, and I would probably try to be as vague as possible.
Right.
And if she's watching this right now, she's probably like, of course you would.
Yeah,
but she would ask me enough questions to where
She'd
if I
figure it
don't
out.
tell her, that I'd be in big trouble when I got back.
I wonder if like you could ask the game show to tell you that, just like tell me that I can't tell anyone what show I'm being on, because then you could be like, hey, I'm going on a game show and they told me that it's a
I
secret.
feel like you could get away with it for anyone that's not like Survivor, where you don't have a cell phone. Because like if you can't communicate with her and you're going to help your uncle, then it's like,
they know.
well, why can't you talk on the phone?
I feel like then you could maybe you could say like texting only, you know, and you like pay a friend. This is getting deep.
I don't trust that.
Yeah, this is getting have you seen the memes, like that one guy that's like all like the strings and the pictures behind him, and he's like trying to figure out like the crazy. That's why I feel like we're just making a big web of lies right now. And I would never do that to you.
Yes.
Unless
I don't know. I don't think that. So what I did, I guess I should say.
Yeah. Anyway, get back to that. Sorry.
I went to a agency because I wanted to do some videography work, like get some help or whatever, and it ended up signing up for like a gig for O'Charlie's. You know what O'Charlie's is, the seafood kind of chain.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I remember when I was
So
here.
they have a location in Simpsonville, and when I went out to the shoot, it was an 8-hour shoot. I was getting paid like over $1,000, and I went out there and I was one of the talent. So I was the waiter on the commercial. I didn't tell anybody. It was a night shoot. It went from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. And I ended up being the hand model. I set the drinks down,
awesome.
the strawberry and the drink. Like, you can't see my face. And then in the actual commercial portion where I'm like delivering food to people, you can see me walking through the restaurant. And I didn't tell anybody.
That's awesome.
And then I get a text from my mom like 6 months later when it airs, with a picture of the commercial that she saw on Hulu. She sent it in the family chat, and I didn't even respond. She's like, "What?"
Excuse me?
Yeah, so I did that.
That's awesome.
I
love surprising people. That's the thing. Like, but I just love. There's something about a good surprise that like
Do you like being
I
surprised?
will lie for. No, I don't.
Yeah, so I'm the same way. I
Yeah,
love
I
surprising
hate
people
being
too, but
surprised.
I don't like it when people surprise
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
I think there might be
That's
something,
really like.
something wrong
Are
with
you
us.
allowed to lie if you know it? Like, you know, like can you like, you know, like it's like the white lies. If you like the surprise is worth it. Listen, honey, I never lie to you unless it's worth it. You know.
Is that in your marriage
Anna's
license?
yeah, right. My Anna's like, you would do something like that. I don't know. When I surprise her, dude, it's just something. It's awesome. Like I surprised her when we were
Does she
dating.
like being surprised?
She does.
So does my wife.
Yes. So it's also like I know that
Does
she's
she always
like
want to
it.
surprise you?
No, because she knows I hate it because I want to plan for it. So
Yeah.
like if she, cause like I could surprise her with a trip. Well, now that we have a kid, not so much. But like when we were single, if I was just like, hey, tomorrow we're going to Europe, she'd be like sick. But to me, if she's like, hey, tomorrow, you know, we're going to Europe, I'm like, bro, I gotta close up shop. I got
stuff
no,
to
like
do.
it would freak me out. Yeah. So
Yeah. My wife wants to surprise me and gets disappointed. Like, I just turned 30, right? And she wanted to do it like a surprise 30. I'm like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
I also don't like people knowing my birthday. So, like, the
you're
fact
one of those people.
I'm one of those people.
Do
And
you just not
I
like
went,
celebrating birthdays.
mostly just mine. Like, I'll celebrate somebody else's. But, like, for a longest time, nobody knew what it was. And then I started dating my wife. My mom told her my birthday because I won it. And then she told everybody else.
What's your birthday?
It's actually,
like 1,000 people just.
it's
watching.
actually been a game. Daniel in our EOS meeting brought it up and asked our staff, like, when's Taylor's birthday?
Does anyone know your
They
birthday?
do now because of the game, but they didn't before.
I'm gonna text you happy birthday. I'm gonna get it from Ryan.
Oh, no. Yeah, so anyway.
I'll do a community post on YouTube. Just get a bunch of just.
Oh,
random
no.
people.
And I'll get hammered on my Facebook page.
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna do that. You're gonna get your identity stolen if
Yeah,
we did
for
that.
real.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. My wife is gonna listen to this and be like, do you lie to me? She's gonna like,
What are you about to surprise me with?
yeah. I don't know. I always feel like there's a little bit of grace, if there's like a good surprise around the corner.
Yeah.
That's how I always feel like. Yeah.
It's
I don't
like,
know.
I did lie, but we're going to Europe.
We are $1 million to just one survivor. You know what I mean?
Oh.
So I did lie and say that I was taking care of my sick uncle Phil. I don't have an Uncle Phil, but we are we are millionaires.
Yeah, I when I went to do the reality TV show, I had phrased it for the longest time to everybody that asked that I had just had a work trip because we were planning racing and stuff.
Yeah, it's easy to do.
And then it was recommended to me by the host Wes Bergman, like, hey, tell people you're going, like some like family, but like just don't like make a big deal about it. He's like, it's a documentary show, like. So I did, and my wife encouraged me to tell my mom, of course, because she's like, she's going to be upset if you go and you don't tell her. I'm like, that's totally fair. So I told her, and like, hey, like, this is what I'm doing. Not a big deal. And it was cool. Maybe it'll be a big deal someday. Great for backlinks and SEO stuff.
Yeah.
Once the season release.
And good for, did you get to, like.
I bought this shirt for that.
Yeah,
I got the shirt from Travis
good,
Woodham.
Shout out.
323 Sports.
323 Sports, Travis Woodham, and his soccer coaching company. What, Premier?
What's it called?
I'm blanking. I'm going to cut this out. Wait, top tier, Travis. Top tier soccer coaching.
Yeah, he's got a good thing going. He's already like killing it on social media.
And he's so kind and smart. If you're in the Greenville area and your kid plays soccer, Travis Woodham, look him up.
He's pretty good. I
yeah,
guess.
and the podcast would already be out. So if you want to see what it's like, hour-long conversation, check out Travis. But dude, that's awesome, man. Being on a game show would be fun. Actually, I don't think I can share this, but I have a friend that that we were just talking about, that friend that's going to be on a show soon. And I'll tell you about that afterwards. Anyway, dude, let's finish out with this. Let's wrap up.
All right.
You said you have some things around the corner. Do you want to talk about those things?
So some of the things around the corner, yeah, I can talk about it. Obviously my next celebrity life, that's what my wife calls it. My next spotlight, going to a reality star's house and talking with him on stuff. This is one of the next things I'm doing. I am working on buying out another property management company and buying a warehouse in partnership with Garrett Martin with Greenville Moving Company, because he wants to start doing storage. He owns a few businesses in town. I think he owns 3 or 4 businesses. Okay. So we're partnering up on a warehouse, hopefully. That's the goal. Yeah. With Yellowtail Solutions, really excited about a couple of products we're doing, including like a reputation building program to help people, small businesses, or really any business that's just trying to build up their Google reviews, Facebook reviews, just to get better ratings and basically create more of a community. Yeah. Like, because you're engaging them and asking for feedback and stuff like that. So you can see what you're doing wrong, what you're doing right, but not completely affected on Google by 1-star reviews or whatever. And then I'm working on, so we have a blog team in Yellowtail Solutions and have for a while. So we partnered with Bob Jones University and hired some people while they were at school, paid them $20 an hour to basically edit some blogs for us, basically transcripts or podcasts for SEO purposes, for financial advisors mostly. And we have figured out a way to utilize a few things like AI, and Josh Richards is a genius when it comes to the analytics and automations and tech in general. He's like that end. And we created a way for someone to come to our website. And I'm launching the alpha test for this project, I think next week, inside of the blocks. All the entrepreneurs I've ever interacted with. We're in a Facebook group together. There's a few thousand of us, I think. Sick. And I'm going to launch the test with them first, see how well it goes, and then I'm going to launch it to a local community called Greenville Young Professionals, where they'll have access to it at a discount. So, like, obviously, only 20 or so people will be able to use it. Basically, first come, first serve. But basically, go to our website and create a blog based on our predefined elements, and then it'll generate. It'll generate a transcript for us based on that and send it to our team. And now our team will go through it. And now these people are graduated now mostly, and they'll edit it out and create a blog that's designed to help you with your SEO traction. And then it's like, sick. And the turnaround time's 48 hours. Yeah. So it's like, and it's, it'll be like $60. So like, you want to blog, $60, here you go. And it's like a huge game changer in like the SEO world. Get that on your website so you can get all those keyword stuff, analytics from Google and whatever.
That's awesome. I might have a referral for you. I have a company starting a blog right now. Keep you posted.
Awesome. Yeah. So marketing companies, them specifically is like who we try to partner with, because not only do you have multiple clients that probably want blogs, We do email authentication to help anybody that does email campaigns.
And again, back to what we talked about, you can have a multi-pronged opportunity to help people.
Yeah, so so that's a good question. That's a good statement though, because in the Yellowtail Solutions world, it is good to have a company that niches on something. And our niche right now is email authentication. The blog stuff is a very sub-item thing that we're doing that if it becomes something that's profitable, it's a new business. And it'll be on its own. It'll probably be sold in some way, but hire somebody else as partner to run it. And then so we can focus back on what we're doing. But it's something that we needed, and it was a value add to draw people in to something that is not sexy to sell, email authentication.
But if anyone that knows anything about that, it matters. Because if your domain gets screwed on, if you send too many out and YouTube marks you in a certain, Gmail marks you in a certain
blacklist,
it's everything goes to spam and you're never seen again.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like Google and Microsoft, they changed the rules in February, and a lot of people were directly affected. We had so many people reach out that were like, hey, in February, all of a sudden my open rate started tanking and my spam rate started going up. And I was like, well, yeah, like we've known about this for months. Like you need to do this. Like, well, I never heard about it. I was like, well, you're sending emails, so you probably should. But hey, you work with us, you don't have to. We'll keep track of it for you. So not only do we provide the authentication, we will track it continuously and give you tips on how you can improve different things. Like the email world is crazy, man. Like
it's just crazy how there's so many, there's niches within niches within niches.
It's so frustrating.
In business. There's always a new, just when you think a certain niche is like, oh, it's all there is. And there's another business opportunity within that it's just crazy.
It is. It's absolutely wild. But yeah, so those are the main things that I have going on right now.
That's awesome, man.
It is.
I love this conversation because I love what you said earlier. And I was going to bring this back up. Like entrepreneurship is a lonely place and you can feel lonely. And so when you can surround yourself with other go-getters, other entrepreneurs that A, know what it's like, but then B, also are creative and thinkers. And it's just, I have a group of entrepreneurs that once a quarter, we all get together in Michigan. And those are so encouraging because a lot of times I'll be kind of discouraged with, this deal fell through or this company changed their mind or whatever. And I'll meet with them. And these dudes are like, I have no business being there. Actually, the EOS guy, Mike, is the one that invited me there. These guys are like driving Porsches and Audis, and I'm driving.
That's not like the realistic expectation.
No, but they've made it though. I'm saying they're older.
Yeah.
They're older.
Oh, okay.
They're all older men. They're 40s, 50s,
Oh,
60s.
that's awesome.
They've done the grind.
They did the grind. They've done the time.
They're very successful.
That's awesome.
Like one of them is, I don't know if you know who Patrick David Bett is. Like a big speaker, company, entrepreneur guy. You look him up. He's great. But like one of the entrepreneurs has a Zoom call with him. Like Patrick David Bett is like Mark Cuban level. And so he's like, yeah, every month I have a call with Patrick David Bett. I'm like, why am I here? Like it's so anybody, I say that to say like, even those guys that are in a completely different financial bucket than me that have made it have the same issues that I have. And like, they're still going through the same thing. They're still going through retention. They're still going through cash flow. They're still going through inflation. And so it's like, it's encouraging. You're like, hey, I'm not alone. Even though they're worth 30 million or whatever, there's still similarities. And the encouraging thing is they brought me up. Mike always introduced me. He doesn't introduce me as the Affleck guy. He introduces me as the podcast guy.
Nice.
And so it's actually been a really interesting thing where this podcast has actually turned into it's made me more credible even in my insurance business because people have been able to see just the authentic Dillon. And I remember I went there once, hung out with these guys. I introduced myself as the Affleck guy, blah, blah, blah. And they were like, oh, an insurance guy, great. But then Mike started introducing me as the podcast guy. I go back, and everyone was like, dude, how's that podcast going? And then another guy, and this guy.
It's easier to talk about than
Affleck.
Affleck.
And they're like, hey, bro, I listened to a couple of your episodes. They're great. Like, I listen to every one. And I'm like.
Oh, you got to follow
and yeah, so it's like, but it's cool because sometimes in business, this is like a side gig. This is a side thing that's actually still helping my insurance business. And now with these guys, it's giving me something to talk about. It's giving me like no one wants to talk about supplemental insurance. Like that's
boring.
Yeah. But this is giving me an opportunity to build relationships with people that, hey, is actually turn around and actually help my supplemental.
Yeah. I feel like there's a good lesson to be learned there. Like most likely you will not build a company that's just done. You'll always have something to work on. The only difference is that instead of working on the car while you're driving it, you can work on it while somebody else is driving it. So it's not like trying to balance two things at once. You are the one working outside of it and on it. And that is where you really start to get out of that valley of disappointment in entrepreneurship and start to move forward.
Yeah. That's awesome. I mean, I'm telling you right now, dude, I feel like there's so many projects in the back of my mind that I'm like, man, I want to start that. And now I'm like, after talking to you, I'm like, I'm going to go start all of them. Like, I'm just so hyped right now of your success.
Talk to your wife.
Yeah, thank you. Anna's like, no, please, Dillon, stop. The one thing that I am, like, for our future, like, we're hopefully going to start a coffee shop soon. The podcast, I haven't talked about it much, but in 2020, we almost did. I had a business plan written.
Bad time to start a coffee shop.
Yeah. And then I realized, so the people that you hire to work at the coffee shop, that is such a competitive industry of rate for hire. Like
Sure
you're
is.
dealing with
Starbucks,
McDonald's and Starbucks and
Dunkin' Donuts.
and then like I don't want to be there. Like I'm not going to be.
You don't want to be a barista?
No, but we do have, and I meant to bring. I'll get you some. I'll get you some to Travis too. But we did make. So shout out Cool Beans Coffee Brewery. We have our own partner for the show. We already have our own low acid coffee. Actually, it's a fun fact. That it's called the Broadcast Brew. The show knows about it. I drink it every morning. It's the best coffee in the world, and I will die on that.
I don't drink coffee.
Well,
or tea.
Really?
I'm naturally caffeinated.
Well, I know, but it's less about the caffeine. It just tastes so good. Well, I'm glad I didn't bring you any, because then you would just turn it down. Does your wife drink coffee?
No, we both don't drink. Well, she drinks
Dang,
tea
I thought we were
sometimes,
going to be
but-
friends.
Dude,
now,
caffeine free, man.
that's good.
I'll tell you what, though. Sugar, kind of my weakness. Definitely an addict to sugar, which is the American thing.
Are you doing
but
like what's your favorite dessert then? Like ice cream, or like if you're gonna have any
Candy.
dessert? Candy. Oh, you're one of those.
I'm one of the candy people. Like, dessert is okay. Cake.
You like snacking on candy. Like, so what's your candy?
So, like, in my office at home, I've got,
Yeah.
like, this giant tube of jelly beans. And then I have, like, a bag of Sour Patch Kids and, like, some gummies. And you open my drawer.
Bro, it's like
and
you're
they're,
still
like,
13.
And
It's
no,
like
yeah,
you've
for
never
real.
graduated. You've
No,
never
yeah,
mentally moved on.
100%. I will say over the last couple of years, my sugar tooth has gone down. I eat way less sugar.
That's good.
We're
getting older.
Yeah, I'm
You
getting
hit
older.
30,
dude. Not only am I getting older, I've kind of got, I guess there's caffeine in this. I kind of started liking dark chocolate.
Yeah,
It's really good.
very good.
Especially when you get it from,
It's
like,
good
Africa.
for your heart too, by the way.
That's what they say.
Yeah.
Well, they say that about caffeine too, but
Well, they say, oh yeah, but too much of anything.
I have
is
the
a
health
bad
science
thing.
background.
Do you? Yeah, coffee is actually a good diuretic too.
Yes, but I don't have problems with that either.
Well, I don't. Coffee, that's for sure. I'm on a tight calendar every morning after my cup. I used to have a mug that said "Coffee makes you poop." It's true.
So you're like you're on that schedule.
I do have a pretty tight ship.
That's awesome.
I run. Yeah, no, but I'm a big coffee guy. I would drink it black the way the Lord intended it to be drinking. Drunk did.
My grandfather's 94 years old, and he drinks it like black, but like burnt,
Like oil
Like
coffee.
you take Folgers and you burn it and you drink it.
That is old person coffee though.
Yeah. Well, he smells like it too. I mean, he's been
Yeah.
doing it for 50 years.
My grandma, she passed away in 2022. I believe 2021, 22. Time flies. But she had pretty much like a pot of coffee a day for her whole life, and she lived till she was like 94, 95. And when she was in her 90s, she was great, by the way. It was a very shock that we thought for her sister lived until she was 103. Her sister, my grandma's sister.
My word.
Aunt Frances, which she's awesome. I only met her a couple times in my life, but Kentucky, just like you're like a Kentucky woman. Yeah.
Got it.
And they grew up in Kentucky. Then anyway, Ford had jobs, and they moved up to Kentucky, Michigan, Detroit, with all the manufacturer boom. Well, where my dad grew up, I grew up in Ohio. But my dad grew up in Detroit area, Oak Park, and whatever. Okay, so point is, my grandma goes to the doctor, and she's fine. Like she had double knee replacement surgery in her 80s, and she like at the same time.
My granddad had that in his 60s.
Yeah, 80s, and she was doing jumping jacks in a couple months, bro. Like
Oh my word.
She
What do they call those centurions?
got back so fast that they were like, first of all, the doctor said she was crazy for doing it at her age. And she's like, she's my grandma, she's stubborn. She's like, I'm doing this. And then she recovered so fast. She was beating like 50 and 40-year-olds out of the therapy. And then like she got her new knees. She was in California for the procedure. She came back to Detroit because we had family that lived out there. She came back. She's like, look what I can do. She's like doing like pretty much like splits and like jumping jacks. And I'm like, Grandma, slow down.
That's crazy.
Like it was so, anyway, but she went to the doctor. And the doctor's like, hey, do you drink any coffee? She's like, yeah, I drink a pot a day. And he's like, well, Margaret, you need to slow down your coffee intake. And she was just like, when you're 91 and still living by yourself, you get to tell me what to do. But until then, I'm drinking a pot of coffee. She had ice cream, a bowl of ice cream, and a pot of coffee every day of her life, pretty much.
That's hilarious.
And I'm just saying the whole like diet and people are
everyone's different.
Listen,
man.
My grandma's living proof that she was skinny. You had as much ice cream and coffee, and she did great.
I'm really into like that world because of my background and my bachelor's degree, and I was recommended a book called Outlive by Peter Tia, which if you've seen that Limitless documentary up for Chris Hemsworth on what was the Discovery Channel, Disney, whatever. Disney owns everything, so. They
also ruin everything. Go ahead.
So that guy wrote a book called Outlive, and like in there he talks about, I think they're called centenarians, people that live to be over 100, and the reasons why. No real reason. Most of it's genetics, it sounds like. But my granddad, I went to visit him when I had my son because he's the first like great grandson, so like the one that carries on the name, right? So I wanted to make sure that he met him because he's getting older, and he told me that he eats Honey Nut Cheerios every morning for breakfast to lower his cholesterol. And then he said, and then I go to Burger King for lunch. That's what he said. I was like,
that's awesome.
Oh.
He balances it out.
He balances it out.
Lowers it in the morning.
Yeah, and then he
brings
raises
it up a little bit. It's fine.
Yeah, and he probably has a cup of pot of coffee a day too.
I feel like people that live old also just are really routined. Like I feel like
he does have a routine for sure.
They're like every old person I met that's like, over 85, and they're like, they've had the same thing pretty much every morning, every day. And I wonder if there's something in
Maybe. I mean, my granddad started, he was riding 4-wheelers last year. I mean, like he's still like decently active, and he got a girlfriend about 10 years ago. Her name's Genevieve.
Nice.
So similar age.
Yeah.
Obviously by the name.
Yeah. I haven't met a young Genevieve.
Yeah. Have you ever met a Genevieve?
I don't think I have.
That's how outdated the name is. Yeah. Really sweet lady, gets her hair done at the same time every week, so she can't come to the cabin when we're there, like whatever. But them having that partnership and then both having their routines that they now had overlapping, I think really helped them both live like a fun, like more enjoyable life.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that helps a lot.
That's awesome. Man,
yeah.
I'm not a big routine
There's
person.
nothing to do with entrepreneurship, but
well, this is my favorite type of podcast when we just start talking. Yeah, no, it's like, speaking of vision and mission, right? Real and authentic conversations.
Oh,
that's
for
what
sure.
That's what our vision is. So, we've said some crazy things on the show, and actually, recently it's gotten a little out of hand. But
yeah, when I heard you brought Nets on the show, I knew it.
That episode, I think it'll be out before this one. So, if my channel is still standing,
then you'll get to see me.
It's a great episode. But dude, anyway, this was fun. I had a blast. Thank you for letting me do this.
No, thanks for the invite. I appreciate it. Last minute.
And appreciate you taking the afternoon. Is there any plug you want to make? Is there any way any of my supporters can help you guys? Anything that you just want to end the show off? Plug in whatever you want to plug.
I mean, if anybody is looking for investment properties or anybody's looking for help their marketing campaigns, that's what I'm here for. That's my main thing right now. So my main things right now. That's the world I live in. So if you need help with that stuff, my team can help you. We'd be happy to. But other than that, no, I don't really have a plug.
And check out the show Blocks.
Oh, yeah.
This September, right?
Yeah.
September?
Yeah.
Is it drop?
Wes. Yeah. So, tune into
Got
the
you,
Blocks.
Wes. Come on my show. Go ahead.
Yeah. I'll put in the word for
That'd
you
be sick.
when I'm at his
That'd
house.
That'd be sick.
Yeah. So it airs in September sometime, I think. Not sure exactly what the date is, but it's on Prime.
Let's go.
So we'll see what happens.
That's awesome, man. I'm a root for you.
I got pulled out for a few interviews, so I would assume that I at least get one highlight.
Let's go. That's always the weird part. I'd love to do a follow-up interview with you, like post when they release the final product to everybody.
Like I'm not on it at all.
Right. You're like,
completely
I did great. And you're like, they don't even show you at all. There was an episode, sorry, really quick. There's this episode of Traders. There's a show called Traders. I don't know if you ever watched it.
I've heard of it.
It's really, really good. There was this dude that was just like there. He was a contestant, but he never had any interviews. He didn't have, the only time you saw him was on a crowd, but he was there.
I hope that's me, to be completely honest.
It was so weird. Yeah.
So like I actually, because of my video background, I actually knew that this was a possibility because there was 113 contestants my season.
Wow.
Now I say that there was only like 80 companies, but some people have traveled in twos. So I strategically, every time there was a big room, I would place myself wearing, because we went to market ourselves, not to win.
Right.
We went to market and network. So I would place myself where I knew a camera would get this a lot.
Right.
So I'd always be on the aisle. they'd always see the shirt. My buddy did the same thing. And so there's a possibility that I will have no speaking roles and you'll just see me in like every camera angle in the audience. Yeah, I always try to do that. So.
That's awesome. If they see like this like blurry, they just like eventually
they blurred it out.
out.
Well, they said that we're not allowed to wear anything that was branded externally except our own stuff. Oh, because they want to market small businesses because that's how they make their money.
Which makes sense. Well, anyway, dude, this was awesome. And I'm excited to watch the show and to see your growth. And man, I love meeting entrepreneurs. Like, this is awesome. And if you, anything else you have, but I feel like this is a good ending spot. Anyone that's listening, I think is going to feel encouraged. I think is going to feel excited. If there's a something that they've been wanting to do, I think this was a really good episode to kind of give them some guidance on some ideas to kind of take that next step, whether they should work a part-time job, jump in it, communication with spouse. I mean, we covered a lot of different things. We did, yeah. And I loved it. If you're new, please subscribe to the YouTube channel or follow us on whatever platform you want.
Feel free to make a contact for me if you want some advice on any particular industry, since I've kind of branched out into a few. I would be happy.
And we'll put in the description. Anything, whatever you want, we'll put in the description so people can easily contact you.
Yeah, if they want some advice on something specific that I said, I'd be happy to help.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys for watching. Leave a comment, share with your friend, and we'll see you guys on the next episode. Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Thanks. Cool?
Yeah.